What's up guys? In this video, I'm going to be opening up my PSA return that just got back in, and also we're going to be showing some pretty interesting information because I crossed over many of these slabs from CGC to PSA, and we're going to be finding out who is grading harsher, who's a little bit more lenient on the 10s. I think there's some really interesting facts that we can extract from some of this information. I just wanted to do this as a sort of experiment, and I think we found out some pretty interesting stuff. So let's see what we figured out. Stay tuned to the end of the video because I do have some fun news to tell you guys that'll be exciting for the future of the channel. All right, let's get into this video. All right guys, so we've got the slabs and the labels all set up here. And just a quick disclaimer guys, before we get into this, you know, I am not pushing for any hate on PSA or CGC. Grading in general is subjective. What looks like a 9 to one person may look like a 8 or a 10. You know, I'm not saying that we should cause any extra grief or hate on any of these grading companies or graders or people who like CGC or PSA or even people who like other grading companies. You know, I really go both ways. Honestly, I'm kind of a PSA fanboy, just a bit, just because that was kind of like some of my more favored cards that I have were in PSA. And I just personally like how the labels look, and that's really all there is to it. You know, it's to each their own, but I just wanted to preface with that. So first off, we've got this Pikachu first edition. So with that in mind, I had the wrong label there for the one below it. So for the first card, we've got a Mint 9 CGC first edition Jungle Pikachu. This is a really cool card. I thought that this one could potentially serve a grade bump to a 10 just because of the very, very minor whitening was, I think, the only issue there. But it did hold the 9. Either way, it's a dub in my mind, just because I do personally like the PSA labels. So I was really happy with this one to get that in a 9 and not get a downgrade. Next up, we have the Nidoking from base set Unlimited. This is a super awesome card. 8.5, near mint to mint. I have several 8.5s from CGC, and I was really curious what they would get in PSA because some of them even have subgrades, so definitely stay tuned to the end of this because there's some very interesting subgrade information that I think maybe did come into play or didn't, but we'll see. So Nidoking 8.5 Unlimited, I thought this card looked really, really good. I actually kind of overpaid for this card, so I was a little bit scared at first, but it did actually score the 9. So that was an awesome win right there. Next up, we've got the Aerodactyl. So here's one of the ones that I said we had subgrades on. So we can see it's an 8.5, it has 9 centering, 8.5 on surface and corners, and then the edges got a 9.5, bringing it down to an 8.5 from CGC. Obviously, this would be a lot more of an informational video. Like, in no way is this scientific at all, because obviously, you know, PSA doesn't have subgrades, and there's so many factors that weigh into grading. I actually think that this one, centering is actually kind of worse top to bottom. I'd say it's worse than 9, but this card did get a PSA 7. I think part of the reason was because of that centering, and it might have been a slight gift grade from CGC, but also at the same time, I don't know, you know, do you think this PSA 7? I don't know. This was kind of a loss, but still nonetheless, you know, this was just an interesting experiment. So that was an interesting one. I'm not sure what happened there. Hitmonchan, this is a super cool reverse holo Hitmonchan. That name there is gold. It's got the stamp. I thought this was a really cool card. I scored this one for a really nice price, 8.5, and it gets the 7. So another card where I was thinking, man, what was it that happened here? I tried to be as careful as possible when cracking all of these out of the cases. So I really don't know. Ooh, you know what, actually? I notice right there is a little bit of damage there. Kind of looks like it's coming up a little bit. So I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to look into that, see if maybe that was something from the case. But either way, this downgraded as well. The Scyther, this one I was super happy to have gotten a Mint 9 with the 10 centering, 9 surface, 9.5, and then the 8.5 for corners and edges. This is the no set symbol. It's missing the jungle symbol, Scyther Error. And I absolutely love this card. I was super into Scyther as a kid. This one has some slight whitening on it. Unfortunately, this one went down to an 8, which was very disappointing. I was really hoping it would at least hold the 9. I will say, guys, if you're planning on doing crossing over, between grading companies, I would highly recommend using the crossover feature that PSA offers, where you can say your minimum grade. Like for example, for this Scyther, I could have told them only crack it out if you're gonna give it a PSA 9 or better. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough cards that I was crossing over, so I decided to just crack them out and completely like have this be more experimental, just because I was curious if there was any sort of like, I don't know, maybe psychology behind it of whether they see the 9 or if they're just going into it blind and grading the card. So anyways, I would recommend, it's a little bit safer for crossover than cracking it out yourself. Next, we have this awesome Charizard Arceus. A lot of these cards, guys, are from those shorts videos that I was posting where I was opening these up. So this one was really unfortunate. I'm thinking about making a video on it next week. So this card right here, I ended up damaging myself right here, and that was a big bummer. And so when I cracked it out, it was an 8.5. I was almost certain that it would get a 9, but it got the 7, and I think it was because of that damage that you can see right there in the actual card. I slightly dinged it there. Otherwise, super amazing looking card, the smallest white spot, and I mean, that was a bit of a disappointment right there. But we've got some really amazing dubs at the end of this submission. So these are some of the really big boys right here, guys. So Dark Houndoom. This card recently sold in a PSA 9 for $200. It was a $250 listed price, and a best offer was accepted for $200. And oh boy, I think this is an amazing card. Look at how beautiful you can see the energy is in the holo there. And this is a reverse holo, and it's got that EX Team Rocket Returns stamp. And this was an 8.5 CGC, and it got the bump to a 9 from an 8.5 to a 9. This was a super big win, and I absolutely love that card. Houndoom is such a cool Pokemon. And then next up, this one is from one of my recent CGC submissions. This ended up getting the Mint 9 of the black and white newer labels, which, like, I'm pretty sure it's easier to get 9 5s and 10s than it's ever been before with CGC. So this one like shocked me. When I got it back, I was so certain it was a 10. I was absolutely shocked. There's no whitening whatsoever on the card. This was completely pack fresh, pulled myself, and I was so confused that I got a 9. And it ended up getting the 10 from PSA, which is an absolute dub. Like, I'm so happy about that. This is such an awesome card from Crown Zenith, and I mean, that is a huge dub right there. That makes up for everything, for all the other crossing over. So those were some absolute banger cards. Just some cool honorable mentions while we're here. I ended up getting that Misty's Favor back from a recent collection pickup, the Misty's Favor from Unified Minds in a PSA 9, which I was saying about how I would be happy if I got it in an 8 or a 9. And I ended up getting it in a 9, which absolutely shocked me. And then I got this Glaceon V-Star from Crown Zenith in a 10, which I love this card. I love it. I think it's super undervalued. There's this one YouTuber that I watch who talked about these cards, the Leafeon and Glaceon V-Star from Crown Zenith, and how they're super undervalued. And I completely agree. I think these cards are going to shoot up in price in the next couple of years. So, but I'm just an Evolutions collector, so I'm just happy to be picking it up at a low versus 2 years from now when I think it's worth a ton more. But yeah, so these are some other cards from the submission, and let's go ahead and talk about some of the numbers of what I spent for grading, what the cost of the cards were before grading, and what they were after crossing them over to PSA. All right, so we're on the Google Sheets for the cards, and I tried to really document it well this time, guys, because I did pay money for the slabs that I bought and also the raw cards as well. So I put everything that we need to know. So the cost of the cards versus what they are now, and then also the selling fees, which I'm just putting 20% because if you're going through eBay, everything included, tax, and also the eBay selling fees, you're probably gonna spend about 20% on the selling fees. Of course, this is not for everyone, and also I can sell this on my website, which is going to have less selling fees, and also I can send it to the eBay vault and also avoid selling fees that way as well. That is something that you guys could do as well, but of course, you know, I'm just putting the higher option for the average seller. And then of course also grading fees, so we've got that accounted for here as well. So first off, I just want to talk a little bit more about the grade difference here. So we've got the Scyther, which went from a 9 to an 8, the Hitmonchan, which went from an 8.5 to a 7, a Houndoom, 8.5 to a 9. Pikachu stayed the same. Aerodactyl, 8.5 to a 7. Nidoking, 11, which was an 8.5, bumped up to a 9. The Arceus, which was an 8.5, dropped down to a 7. And then the Giratina, which went from a 9 to a 10. So, starting off with the Scyther, that one ended up dropping just $5 from what I saw. So, of course, we do have to consider the fact that I also paid grading fees as well for this. Plus, I'm going to lose money on the selling fees. So, it's a bummer for that one. I was really excited about that too. But nevertheless, you know, that's just the case that it is. The Hitmonchan I only paid $30 for. It's now worth $15 in a 7, so probably would just sell that on Whatnot or something else, just give it away, you know. Houndoom, that was a huge win. Like I told you, there was a recent sale for a 9 for $200. I ended up paying $30 for that in an 8.5. And it bumped up to a $200 card. The Pikachu, actually, I got it for a great deal, $23. So, in PSA, I've seen some sales for higher than a CGC 9. So, I'm confident I can sell that for $45, which is a nice little plus. Aerodactyl, even in the downgrade, I actually am still going to probably, you know, I won't be breaking even still, but, you know, it's not going to be an utter loss. It's just some CGC cards are just worth less in the grade that they are. And I bought this for $30, and PSA 7 is just worth more than an 8.5. You know, I don't really truly understand that sometimes, but you know, let me know in the comments what you guys think. That Nidoking went from an 8.5 to a 9, and that doubled in price. I spent $47, which I was really worried about because in an 8, I think it's not even worth $40. So in a 9, I was super happy to get that because it's a $95 card. And the Arceus, like I said, I kind of damaged that card, so that was a bummer. I think it would have been a 9 easily, which is like a $150 card. So what it could have been was a potential $150 card, ended up dropping to a $35 card because of that mistake. So that was a real bummer there, but it is what it is, and it was a learning experience. The Giratina V-Star, super happy about that. Bumped up to a 10 from that CGC 9, and that went from a $40 card because of, you know, that's how much I paid for the card. Plus, technically speaking, I ended up paying grading fees from CGC, which was $9. But anyways, I paid $40 for the card, and then it was now a $140 card because of it being a PSA 10. So that's awesome. So we've got the amount of cost and also grading fees comes to $432. I'm thinking that I can do better than 20%, but just for the sake of what I explained earlier, I'm going to take off 20% of the $635. So that's gross pay of $508, and that's a profit of $76. So guys, this was an experiment. I know $76 is like nothing. Okay, this is like, come on, you know, like this is not even worth my time. You know, I spent several hours doing everything, but it's an experiment. It makes a great video, and it's something to kind of just have as a learning experience. I was really curious what I would learn from this, and I feel like it's hard to really pinpoint anything like exactly because of the fact that there's no subgrades on PSA's cards, but I don't even think CGC is doing subgrades anymore on their new black and white labels, but I'll have to look into that more just to confirm if that is the case or not, but I haven't seen any with subgrades. So I think it's just completely subjective, and it is hard to tell what the graders are basing it on anymore because it's so subjective and everyone can grade it differently. And even with the subgrades, you have to think the subgrades are also going to be a little bit subjective. So it's like, if the subgrades are subjective and the grades are subjective, like, we obviously can't scientifically like prove anything exactly, but I just wanted to do this as a video to show the numbers and just kind of give you an idea of if you could potentially do this and make profit. And I absolutely think you could, because for example, let's say I had just bought this Houndoom and that Nidoking, okay? Let's say I had just bought those cards. We're talking about doubling our money, more than doubling our money for that Houndoom. So I think that if you were to really like scrutinize the card digitally through eBay or through wherever you're buying it, just look at what the card looks like under the case and see if it's worth cracking out. And this might even be the case for some cards in your guys' personal collection. Look at some of your 7s, look at some of your 8s. I personally think that if it's a 9, it's highly unlikely it's gonna bump up to a 10. But even in the case of this Giratina, I mean, it was a 9 versus a 9.5 or CGC 10, and it got the PSA 10. So look at some of your 7s, 8s, and even 9s in your personal collection or online, and I think that you could potentially double or triple your money just from cracking those out and crossing them over, or just regrading them. We don't always have to just like grit our teeth and say, ah man, this is a 9, no way. You know, you can crack it out if you truly do believe that it can get a higher grade. And this can go for older cards too. And I'm not necessarily talking about like restoring them or, you know, doing any of this heat treatment or the humidity treatment. I'm just saying cracking them out as is. You can get a different grade. And this is obviously the case from this. So let me know what you guys think. I just wanted to put this video out there as an experiment. Like I said, I know 76 bucks is not anything crazy, but this was a really fun experiment, a really cool learning experience. And I will absolutely look into doing this again, possibly for some of my personal collection, because there's a few cards in there where I was like, is that really a 9? Is that really an 8? So we will see. Definitely look out for future videos, guys. Here's the other just honorable mentions that I made earlier. So that Glaceon I ended up getting for free. It's worth $45. I paid $14 for grading fees. And then that Misty's Favor I paid $60. It's worth about $200, which I actually saw last comp for $250 just before making this video. So could even be worth more than that, but I'm comfortable saying that I can sell it for $200. And yeah, so that's $100 profit right there. Pretty cool. Just, you know, wanted to show those as well, just because I did show those in the submission. Anyways, that is all for the numbers. So guys, that was pretty interesting. It was sort of a wash in some instances, and then others were an absolute dub. I was super excited about that Houndoom. I think that's a super awesome card, and honestly, I think it was really undervalued for what I got it for. It was just kind of a lucky auction time that I ended up picking it up, and the fact that that ended up being valued that much more than what I paid for it was absolutely amazing. There was some instances where it was kind of like, ah man, that's rough, that's too bad. And I'll actually have another video coming out soon talking a little bit more about that Charizard and how that was actually one of my biggest mistakes with grading. So definitely look out for that video in the future, but I did have some exciting news to tell you guys. We are going to be moving across country. Well, not necessarily across the country, but over a few states in a little over a month. So when that happens, I'm thinking about maybe doing some vlog videos during the move, kind of maybe even, you know, while we're stopping through towns, possibly stopping by some local card shops and checking those out, maybe doing some pack battles with Riley. But yeah, so that's gonna be really crazy. Right now I'm based out of California, but we're gonna be moving to Montana. So very exciting move. So I did wanna let you guys know about that. You know, I don't really know how many of you guys will really care, honestly, about that news, but I did want to let you guys know. And yeah, that's gonna probably affect some of the uploads around that time, because obviously there's a lot that goes into a move. But also, some other news is this next week, I'm going to be on a little vacation to New York. So that's gonna be another thing that's going on. I'm gonna be gone for a week for that. There will not be an upload. I believe it'll be February 12th. I'll correct myself on screen here if need be. So I'm very excited about that. I might be posting a video that is from our trip while we were there. Just depends on how things go, especially with the weather. But yeah, so that is all for this video. Just kind of wanted to put this one up real quick. So I hope you guys did enjoy that. Thank you for tuning in as always, and we'll catch you in the next one.